So, our next speaker is Dr. Petter Skult, game and narrative designer at the indie company called MyTale, who will be telling about difficulties in designing a narrative-driven action-adventure RPG and the case of Willowguard. Petter, welcome, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, it works, nice. All right, let's hope this works as well. Thank you all for coming. Glad to be here. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about some of the difficulties we've had when we've been developing our story-driven action RPG, which is a combination that can be a little bit problematic in various ways. This is actually, let's see if this button goes forward. Yeah, it does. So this is just very short about me. I am the principal designer and narrative designer of Willowguard, so that means that I do the design and I do the writing. I've been in the industry part-time and full-time since about 2016. I'm also, yes, a PhD, and my topic was about post-apocalyptic interactive fiction, so that's kind of my background. Very quickly, we have a lot of slides to go through, so I'm just going to sort of move forward. And just very quickly about Willowguard, if you are interested after this talk to know more or know anything at all, we have a booth right behind this scene where I will be the rest of the day, so you can come there and talk to me or with any of us about the game. So this is just a very quick kind of thing about what it is. The initial concept of the game was just kind of a Badger Witcher meets Mouse Guard, and we tested it out in game jams, the GMTK jam in 2022 and the Quantum Game Jam in same year. This is sort of what it looked like back then, and the initial concept was just an action RPG where you kind of run around in dungeons and you slash things and you destroy things and you have a good time. As you can see, it was very sort of basic initially. This is a nice GIF that shows the progress. So what I'm going to do in this talk is I'm actually going to go back through time a little bit. I've been looking through my archive of development GIFs and like images, because we are an entirely or almost entirely remote company. So the way we do development quite often is that we make a little video of the thing that we're working on and we send it to everyone else, and then they get to look at it and sort of get a feel for what's happening in the game. So that's what I've done. I've kind of gone back and looked at what we've done. And while doing that, I kind of want to discuss at least one particular thing that is problematic in this game, just as a sort of illustrative example. So this is in January 2023 when we started the development of the game. We had some very basic graphics, and the first thing that we did, so we wanted to make an action RPG that also had a story in it. But when we started, there was no action RPG part, there was only the story part. So the game started with me developing the story bits, basically. This is what it looked like very sort of early on, some of the first videos that I posted. And we had these concepts for how the story could work, how it could sort of be presented. One of the ideas was to sort of have this sort of scrolling backgrounds, have a map that you move around and so forth. And then we very soon started working on the enemy designs, and when we did that, we instantly realized that we wanted to have juicy, horrible, bloody monsters dying. This is one of our enemies called the bear spike, and the difference between the second and the third sort of thing is that the feedback was make it bloodier. So we've always done a lot of that. So we started doing this, and so far so good, everything's fine. And then you can sort of see that by March we've already got a prototype, we have a better map, we have a better sort of movement, we have some nice backgrounds, we can sort of get going. This was all, basically the entire story, 50,000 words or so, was written before almost any of the action stuff was done, which you will see is it's going to be a little bit of a problem eventually. What you can see here is actually one of the core mechanics of the game. Whenever you get to a certain point in the story, you get to make a decision. And that decision improves one of the inclinations of your character. you have 4 of them, and through those inclinations it changes the story. So you can become more empathetic, you can be more neurotic, you can be more instinctual and so forth. So that was kind of the base part that we had planned, and that worked very well in the story. But when it came to making the action RPG part, so this is a very early clip from April. We've got movement in, the coder is showing here that we can move, we can slash, things are working, and we had the concept for a card game. So basically you have cards in a deck and you pick the cards from the deck, and those are your special abilities. So far so good. At that point we had to make a decision about how to integrate the story parts with the action parts, and the decision we made is the problem. We made the decision that the inclinations that you get during the story bits will improve your cards in various ways. Simple enough at this stage. This is fine. We did a very quick iterations, very swiftly moved our way through sort of new designs for how the cards should look like, how you should pick them. This is, very much behind the scenes, backstage stuff. So you're seeing, never before seen footage of making a game. As you can see on these cards, they have in the upper right corner, left corner actually, they have an icon that shows the inclination. So in this case, for example, the magic arrows would do more damage based on how much creed you have, which is one of the inclinations, which worked well enough at this point. But actually this same system that you see here is still in use. It just looks better and functions better, but it is actually the same system, so that was pretty good. By August 2023, so that was the same year that we started development, 8 months later, we had a build that we were pretty proud of, and we sent it off to Gamescom just to get some feedback and stuff like that. And at that point in our sort of deck, we were already talking about the deck building and the inclinations being an integrated whole. So we had this sort of idea that you have these inclinations that you increase in the story, and then that helps you during the dungeon combat. But as I kept developing new cards and making new synergies and figuring out new ways of using your abilities, here for example we've just implemented the armor system. So you have armor and you can tear the armor, and you have these area of effect spells, and you have damage types, and you have all of these kinds of things. I realized that we had a slight problem. The problem was, in this here, by the way, we just implemented destructible objects. So in 11 months in, we now have destructible objects in our action RPG. It's a matter of what you emphasize first. I realized that the cards and using the different cards and the abilities that they give you is a lot of fun. It is just a lot of fun. And we were currently, at that time, we were putting the cards behind, we were hiding them behind the inclinations. So you had to have a certain amount of an inclination in order to unlock a card, in order to upgrade it, in order to use it. You had to improve your inclination. And the inclination system was working really well for the actual sort of story part of the game. You met new characters, and every single time you had any kind of interaction with them, you would pick what kind of character you are. So there was the role-playing aspect of that seemed to be working really well. You can see here's some November updates. We have a stage system working. We have some nice visual effects in the background. We have, various things like that. So that was working really well. But whenever we tried to integrate it into the action RPG part, we ran into sort of issues, and this got worse. This is a very, very cool clip from our development of the puzzle levels. So we wanted to have puzzle dungeons and puzzle sort of gameplay in the game as well. And so for example, here you threw a bomb at a wall and it opened up and you could go through. A classic Zelda trope. The problem was that currently the way it was designed, the entire concept of throwing bombs was behind the instinct inclination. So only if you had that inclination could you hope to actually have bombs and use them. Problematic if you don't happen to have that kind of character. Now, one solution to this, of course, would be to make, go Cyberpunk 2077 and just have all possible avenues of approach. But we are a small indie team. We do not have the resources to actually design that many possible options. So, what to do? In the meantime, this all worked perfectly well in the story mode. We added new things, investigations and things like that. So, constantly improving that part, which again was working really well. But we had kind of run into this problem with this integration. There was also some other problems, and as I said, I am both the designer and the writer, so it's my fault if something doesn't work in the design or the writing, and also my responsibility to make the writing work together with the design. And I had hitherto kind of been a bit too strict with myself. I realized as I was working on this that there needed to be a clear separation between these two modes, because one of them is pure fun. You're playing, you're having a good time. You don't want to be stopped by arbitrary things, decisions that you'd made at some point during your gameplay in the story mode. You didn't want to be stopped by that while playing the action parts. So this is one thing that I, for example, added. This is just a sort of aside. I wanted to put this in here. You see how they sort of teleport in? That is a part of the story, is that they are from a different dimension. Spoilers. But that isn't revealed until a bit later, or shouldn't be revealed until a bit later. But I realized as I was designing this that it's more fun. It's better for the game balance if they just can spawn in like this at any point. So I just made them do that. You have to give up on your narrative ideas sometimes for the betterment of the game itself. And this is sort of where we were at a couple of months ago. This is now we made all the puzzle dungeons, and we learned a lot of stuff from there. We have, you can do a lot of things in the actual action world now, and they're not constrained in any way by your inclination. So essentially what we ended up doing is we took the entire inclination system that we had for the narrative part, and we removed them entirely from the cards. So the cards are now completely decoupled from that. So you can get any cards that you want to, that you can find and you can craft, but it's not tied in any way to that narrative part. And as a result, the game itself became better. It became more approachable and more fun for everyone. As an aside, a solution, of course, to the inclination thing would have been a respec button, a big old button that lets you change all of your inclination points at any point in time. But that would have completely destroyed the narrative part, because then you're no longer creating your badger, you're creating something else. So we didn't want to do that. So we kept them both, but separately. Yes. I'm actually going through these a lot faster than I thought I would, so we can actually look at this for a second. It's all fine. And this is the sort of the point that we've gotten to. This is the video that is currently playing on the screen behind this scene. It has all the latest updates and latest sort of achievements of our game. And I think that by sort of basically I identified a problem in the design, in the way that we presented the game, and tested it out, realized it was problematic, fixed it, and got a better game as a result, hopefully. So that's kind of the essence of this talk that I wanted to bring forward really during this entire conversation. Is this mine? Yeah. So yeah, I actually realized that I kind of overshot here. I was very afraid that I would be ending up talking way too long about each stage, so I kind of hurried through each of them, knowing that I only have 20 minutes to talk. But now it turns out that I could actually do this entire presentation in 15 minutes, which is really handy for me because that means I have more time to elaborate on things that I probably skipped over a little bit too fast. Now, if you'd like to ask me any questions, that would be great. So,
Dina is here.
please. She's busy. That's good. I think there is a microphone somewhere. So if anyone wants to ask me any questions,
Now it's time, yes. And Joel is next.
please do.
Yeah. Yes.
I was very fast. I was faster than I thought I would be.
Way faster,
Yeah.
which is impressive, to be honest. I can tell you that we usually have a problem as a writer. He gives way too much narrative as well as talking always a lot. So this was like, wow.
Yeah, no,
I'm so proud of you.
I was very afraid that I would be talking too much, so I talked too little instead.
But now it's wonderful time for any questions or comments, especially when it comes to designing. Maybe not just, but RPGs are very complex, as we all know, and how to make everything click. So just like before, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand so I can come with a mic, and yeah, we can start. So any questions?
Sorry, I probably missed the part. You already released this game, or it is?
It is currently being developed. It is available for wish listing on Steam. Oh, plug. But it is not released yet. No, it is still under active development. Yeah.
Do you have any amount of beta testers for during development?
Sorry, can you say again?
Do you have any amount of beta testers
That is an
during development?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. We have had, currently we're also testing the game, so you can come and test it right now, and we are noticing what people are doing and so forth. So we are like actively beta testing it right now. We have, of course, also during development, we have done various tests. We've shown it at some events here and there. We've had people from the outside come in and play. We've had internally people beta testing it and testing it, doing this stuff. If I may, I feel like maybe the real question here is that, did this problem that I talked about come up during beta testing? And it did not, because the problem that I was talking about is kind of you have to play through basically the entire game before you realize that, I've locked myself out of a lot of options and I've ended up having less possibilities than I could have. So it's very few beta testers ultimately have actually done that, because this is a pretty long game. It's will take you maybe 10 to 15 hours to play through the entire thing. And usually when we do some kind of beta tests or some kind of shorter tests, we have people for a limited amount of time and they get to play 2-3 hours, something like that. That's what we can sort of expect from them, which will get them some distance into the game. But this is kind of it's like a comprehensive, systematic issue rather than like a moment-to-moment gameplay issue. That might not have been your question, but I just sort of answered it prematurely.
That was the main question, but you answered my questions in any way. My question was, you had a lot of changes of your narrative from the start to the end, so probably at the end it is a completely another game than it was from the start. And if you would have a couple of people playing your game and they like it, some of them can be disappointed at the end of the development. And right from the start, I thought that you were releasing your game from the start and improved it for the audience you have. And I was interested how audience approve these changes and how it feels.
So, of course, we judge audience approval by when we're just sitting there and watching them play. Like, we can see if they're having a good time. And I'd say that they've always had a good time. It's not, I don't think that we've noticed necessarily like a huge we haven't noticed that, for example, that somebody would go like, oh, I really like this feature, why did you take it away? Like, that's sad. We haven't noticed that because I think in most cases when this feature was sort of existing there, it requires that you really think about it and you play the game actively like a sort of meta player to understand it. Like, that's the kind of developer level play to actually understand what the problem was. So I think most of the sort of surface level beta testers, they see the story, they see the characters, they see the action, and they like all of that, and that hasn't changed. It's just sort of gotten better, I hope. And so that's kind of like, I can't say that there's been like an obvious, oh, this is so much better now, except that it is always so much better. You might have noticed that we went through that basically a year of development, and the difference between January 2023 and today is, at least in my eyes, pretty stark. So there's also been that. When you do development like this very quickly, it can be difficult sometimes to tell the difference between feedback that is about systems and feedback that is about, appearance and VFX and all of that stuff. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but
yeah. And when I hope your release go well, and
thank you.
It would be very interesting to see what kind of changes to game you will allow to yourself after the release, and read the comments of the Steam players.
Yeah.
So it would be very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
thank you. Thank you.
Good
yes.
luck to release.
Wonderful. Any other questions or comments?
By the way.
Yes. Oh, there we go.
Okay, thanks for the good presentation. It's always very nice to hear about the experience during the development. And, one thing I was interested is that what learnings do you take from this now? If you would start this project from scratch again, what would you really do differently there? Would you take different approach on separating the narrative from narrative game mechanics or something else like that?
So there is a historical reason why it turned out the way it is, this development historical reason, which is that when we started the project, I had like the time allotted to work on the narrative. That's like my main job, is to be the narrative designer and then the regular designer. So I had time to actually write the entire story, make all the mechanics for it, and make it all work. And every time there was a fight, it just popped up a screen that said fight, and then after it said you win. Because there was no fight in between. So probably what I would do is I would insist, it was productively, like from a production perspective, it wasn't possible at the time, but probably I would, in retrospect, insist that we do the both of them more in tandem, so that we avoid this kind of situation where there is a big functional mechanic from the narrative side that actually doesn't work at all, even though it's planned to work, but when you test it in action, it doesn't work in the action side. So that's basically what I would probably say the biggest learning is. Like, even if it's just gray boxes, even if it's just, sprites kind of floating around without animations, it would probably be a good idea. Because I kind of naively thought that it would be totally possible and easy to marry these two concepts, but yeah, it wasn't. So that's the biggest sort of immediate learning. Like, start, even if you have two sides like this on a game, just do them in tandem. If they're going to be in tandem, then they should be done in tandem. I think in most cases, this is just sorry to continue, I think in most cases what happens in game development is that they start with the action part, like the game part first, and then they implement the story after, which is why there are so many games where the story feels like an afterthought, it doesn't really fit into the things, because the entire game is already designed. In this case, we started with the story first, and then we put the action bit afterwards, which also has its problems, but
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Don't be shy, I'm not dangerous.
Yeah, a fellow introvert as well. So I have a question. I always have questions. So in the case of, if someone would like to start and never done this before, maybe develop an RPG, in particular, or a narrative game of any type, like any other genre, but really story-driven. Any tips that you would like to share of what would that be if you haven't done it before, and how to start? Like where to look to start even looking from?
Unfortunately, the common advice is don't do an RPG as your first game.
Solid.
Yes,
Tip
but
number
people,
one.
I mean, RPGs are a very popular genre for a reason, especially because, you know, people like story, people like action, people like to put them together. It makes sense. Where to start? I would probably recommend that you start simple, you start easy, and maybe you pick one or the other. Like, I think that we are very ambitious with our project because we have both sides and we want to put equal effort into both of them. But I also think that if you are just starting out and if you're just doing this for the first time, doing a game that is mainly just story with light mechanics of other kinds, or doing the mechanics for the sort of that you're interested in when it comes to an RPG, like action stuff, making a game that works with just the one or just the other before smashing them together is probably a good idea. That's where I would recommend starting. Of course, it depends on your team, your ambitions, your time, your funding, but yeah.
But yeah, one other top tip it would be also exactly that see that all of that from the start is being taught, no matter what might be ideas in what direction will be, so that less headaches. There will be headaches, but maybe less headaches.
There will always be headaches.
There will be headaches, but might be easier to solve in certain ways. So yeah, we have time still for maybe one more question or comment. We have now, so I apologize. Trying to keep the mic away from myself, but not to cause technical issues. Here we go.
Sorry, I'm just wondering regarding the fact that you went through 2 game jams with the game. What were the like? How did you work with the topics or themes of the game jams? Did it help you like go a bit further, or did you roll back some features later and stuff?
Yeah, the game jams were extremely useful in various ways. First of all, we got, I think both of the game jams were actually roguelikes, so we started out with that idea, and this game isn't a roguelike anymore, but the action heart of it is a little roguelike. Every dungeon, if you die during the dungeon, you have to start it over, but each dungeon takes, 5 to 10 minutes to do if you're good at it. So there's like a short loop. You die very easily. It's very easy to die, but clicking the restart button and going again is very sort of quick. So that was one thing. Like, roguelikes are popular to make in game jams because you don't have to generate so many levels and stuff like that. So we did that. So there's like a roguelike element. Some of the dungeons are also generated like semi-procedurally, as in you would put together pre-made bits into rooms and then we kind of make a dungeon. So it's also more fun to play that way, so you sort of have some variety. And then we also got some experience just with sort of the movement system and the abilities. We had a completely different idea for how the abilities would work in one of the game jams, and that didn't work terribly well, but then we went over to this one. The card system was also kind of prototyped there, so a lot of the action-y stuff, which might also have been a problem. We thought that we had the action-y stuff pretty well figured out. Turns out it needed a lot more work still. But so there was like a double-edged sword in that way, but yeah. So yeah, we did get a lot out of it. I can't say we got a lot of narrative stuff out of it, except for the map. We got the map out of it. We realized that moving on the map and finding new locations and opening new dungeons was a really fun mechanic for the narrative, so that's directly from the game jam as well. Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, maybe just one more. So it's still like accessible, like on itch.io or somewhere, or like these.
It's. I have 20 seconds. Go.
No. Go for it. It's fine.
Like, are these versions still accessible? Like
oh yeah,
itch.io and stuff?
100%. Yes, they are on the MyTale MyTale itch.io page. You can go and find them there. They are very fun.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, and as it was said, we have to move on now. But Petter is here, and the team behind, there is a booth. You can go and test the game, like the current version, and give the feedback. Petter, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And yeah, any other questions, feel free to just reach directly.
And yes, come and talk to me. I'm behind there. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.